consumer always moves, right? So this is the way consumer always moves. Say example, if you see these logos were the best logos in 90s and late 2000. Imagine, right? Nokia's was one of the best. 95% market share was with the Nokia, or Kodak cameras, or Yahoo messengers, or AOL messengers, or these mills or long queues ahead of cinema halls or share markets, STD, SDPC. We used to go there, right, and wait for our turn to do some of those calls to our relatives. I have seen those days sitting in a college waiting for my turn, that too after 7 o'clock or after 8:30. So that was the era, right? So these were the best logos that moment, but every business model around these logos has vanished. Why? Because these logos didn't hear what consumer is doing and how consumer is moving ahead with the new technologies, so-called smartphones or internet and so on and so forth. So today we might be having different types of consumers, right? And if you look at this latest millennial or Gen 20 type of consumers are changing the way we are living or the way we are operating. Right? And today every generation has its own need. Let's say example, traditionally next two level of these generations, millennials or Gen X or Gen 20, so they are going to change our next business model. Start imagining what all things gonna change in the next few years, right? Or you talk about the way we have adopted internet, right? So today it must be more than 60 to 70% of the people are on the internet in the world, and this number will increase. Which we are utilizing, right? It's a more than 5-6 billion smartphones we are utilizing out here. Now look at type of devices we have used in the past. In a late 2000, I have used some of those PCs with a 486DS, and today we see 7th generation processors, or you can't imagine even life without mobile phones. Today we are in this era, but tomorrow we will enter in this connected platforms or connected era. Certainly our demand will increase, rather it will change the way we will interact or do the transactions. And what is the bottom line? What we have seen in the last 20-25 years, while we are in industry 4.0 with internet, communication plays major role. While we have used keyboards and the mouse in the past, today touch and the swipe and talk are those mechanisms most of the consumers interact. I think new generation customers have never seen keyboards, right? Now, while we are in this era, this voice technology is a prominent technology, which really always help to interact with your devices, interact with your cars, interact with your every gadget all around you. Although there are a lot of technological innovations are happening, right? So it will go on further more, maybe brain-to-brain interface or a gesture or mood. But today it's an era of a talk or a voice, while touch and the swipe has already been matured ecosystem, right? Why we are doing all of these things? Because every organization, every business model look at what is their next level. Maybe my earlier level was something like a paper-based, right? Account opening is paper-based, and for every transaction, I want to know my balance. I want to know my statement. For everything, I used to go to the branch and do some kind of a paperwork. Today, voice is bringing that extreme digital kind of experience and typically it has come from other industries, so-called gaming and retail and the industry which are most innovative. Today, I think some of the banks in India are also looking at how voice can become another channel. The way we have internet, mobile, how voice can become another channel. I will not be surprised. Every home will have some kind of Alexa or a Siri, which will take all the transaction requests and will perform the way consumer wants, right? So that is all about extreme digital. The way we have seen not digital to the extreme digital, that's the journey which we see. And while doing this, as I said earlier, communication plays major role, like what we have seen keyboards and or touch screens. Voice is going to become more and more prominent in an AI-enabled ecosystem. So this was the past, right? I spoke about those branch banking examples. This was the past. This is the today. Today, my customer client talks to the internet banking or mobile banking or some of those open bank kind of initiatives with a lot of fintechs, branch banking or a contact center. Every business model out here is adding one more layer called as a voice layer. Talk about text-based chatbots are slowly getting converted into voice. today it could be a technological challenge with the internet, but tomorrow with the 5G, it's gonna be 100% a voice-enabled interface for every of the channel. That is how I think we'll see more and more adoption of a bidirectional or AI-enabled banking. That's how I look at the futuristic banking altogether. Now, if you look at some of those statistics, right, 50% of consumers use voice search to find information about global or local businesses, right? So these are some of those statistics. 27% of online Google population is using voice search on mobile, and this number will increase further more and more. 60% of people claim that a smart devices are essential for their lives, and whenever they use smart devices, obviously voice becomes another prominent interface to interact with those devices. 56% of voice searches were performed to look for something up on the internet. So that is the consumer behavior is being changing, right? Consumer is becoming more agile, more demand centric. So, and voice becomes a immediate interface for any of their interfaces. While I am driving my car, tomorrow those smart cars will take a voice commands, right? Tomorrow sitting in a house, my electric gadgets and everything will pay out my bills the way I will give us some instruction through voice. So it's a big thing, right? So the way I have showed some of those logos like Kodak's, Nokia's, this has vanished. Now look at these logos. Ola, Netflix, Amazon, these are high-end new age logos. And if you ask all of these logos, every logo is doing research around voice to bring us some kind of a talk about a Siri or Google, right? So everybody has given huge research on voice, and they are bringing a lot of on same thing. And if you talk about how typically it works, I think we are here with the LOI, right? So they can always explain you all how a typical architecture for a voice coming in, how this voice is getting converted to literals, and what all those AI platforms really make you understand exact command in the backend. You talk to those APIs, will talk to a core banking system and serve everything for you just like that. And technology, if you ask me 3 to 4 years before, I was not being so confident about, but today the way we see there are quite a lot of platforms available, LOI, and there are further more, which will really make that voice journey much more better out here. So typically, if you see some of those benefits for customers, it is available 24/7. It is not like that I have to open my laptop, do the password and login password, and they do the transaction. Your voice can become your authorizing power, right? Your identity, unique, right? Some of the banks has already implemented in a contact center, voice acts as a password. It's a high quality service, and proactive engagement can be done for our customers. For a bank, it's a cost reduction. Certainly, it's a huge cost reduction for deployment of a chatbot, reduction of errors. So much of error while having a contact center person in between. You can have a voice bot which will serve some of the right, and easily scalable. There are a lot of benefits, and these benefit lists go furthermore. Use cases could be like automated customer support. Say example, some of the banks are utilizing for some of those repetitive queries. This voice can be really a helpful interface for them. Voice bot, they serve on behalf of a human contact center agent. Some of the calls can be really taken care with the help of a voice bots. We are utilizing some of the voice-based calls, right? So which are interactive calls for a collection of your loan amount and so on and so forth. Real-time customer assistance, video-based client onboarding can be. See, these are all Web 2.0 use cases. While we enter into Web 3.0, voice will become prominent interface, and there we'll have to do many more things. So, best thing to evaluate any of those voice-based platforms, right? Map your customer journey. Where is your customer? How will you reach out to the voice? Say example, can we introduce some of the voice into internet banking or mobile banking and so on and so forth? Identify the common queries asked by the customers, and see how many percent of those queries can be automated with the help of a voice or similar kind of a chatbots, either through contact center or your website and so on and so forth. Outline areas of human assistance wherever the human assistance is required. For example, branch or contact center I was talking about, right? And at all, what all channels you can have a customer journey. Which conversational platform you should go ahead with. I think from last 5-6 years, we have seen a lot of a lot of maturity in Amazon or Google or Apple or Microsoft kind of platforms. Many other Indian entities I can name, they have built their own voice platforms, right? I think last but not the least, safeguard your customers, their data while you are selecting any of these platforms. So friends, we have seen in the past Internet 1.0, right, which is a static websites, communication on emails. And what we are living today is era of social media, mobility, cloud computing. Tomorrow, rather today, world maybe, but what is slowly entering into Internet of Things. So while we will enter in the Internet of Things world with the 5G, people will become more agile. They will demand whenever they are sitting. By just sitting here, they will order their mobile phones, their desktop, their cars, instruments, all their IoT devices to perform the transactions. So that is why it's very important to see how quality voice products or voice-based platforms are coming in. So other technology, like it's not only voice. Voice is just one of the part, right? So, but how voice will interact with entities like blockchains or AI will create a different level of platforms altogether, right? So I think it's a high time for every organization to really practice it up these things. If they are not doing today, I think they are missing out of those customers who are looking at a voice as being one of those interface, right? So there are some remarks from my side furthermore before our discussion. So thank you so much, team LOAI. I am sure you are doing actually good work, and thank you so much, Digital, for bringing this conversation for all of our viewers. Looking forward how tomorrow's interfaces will have a more and more voice-centric innovation. So thank you so much once again. Yeah.
Thank you, Prasanna sir. That's a very passionate point of view from the technology perspective. And I also understand your points on what's been the tech transformation based on your excerpts and history as well as the consumer transformation and how there has been a massive transformation in the banking technology trends. So, and also I would also like to thank Varun, who's been part of this as a part of the panelists to give deep insights about Yellow.ai and the power of the entire platform. There were a few questions or trending topics that I was thinking of actually asking. I jotted down based on when I started the presentation and discussion sessions. However, I feel that Prasanna sir has already answered that question in deep details on how we are going to tackle the future technology trends and how conversational AI basically has the power to transform the financial industry. So if you have anything additional to add on top of that, Prasanna sir, we will be delighted to hear your voice, your words.
Prasanna, I have a question for you.
Yes, yeah. Who is there? Yeah.
This is Varun.
Varun.
Yeah, Mr. Varun.
So Prasanna, the question which you asked was, which you mentioned was, right, protect your data of your customers when you select a vendor, right? I would like to dwell more upon it. It's a very interesting key point which you mentioned, right? I mean, are banks open to cloud? Yes or no is a question for you now.
Yeah, certainly we are open for a cloud because that's how the consumer is going. You see one of my slides, those old logos. We don't want to become those old logos. We want to see where consumer is moving and how other parallel industries, so-called e-commerce industry or fintech industry, adopting cloud. Say example, whenever we adopt any of the fintechs are already on the cloud first journey. So in a nutshell, in inheritance, that whole network bank which are residing on today's managed data centers, and a fintech is become a cloud adoption inherently. As a DC bank, we already adopted cloud on a video KYC, some of those financial applications. What happens, right? So it's an evolution journey, right? So how do we really adopt cloud? Although there are some guidelines by RBI considering around data localization and many more. And we have seen some of those experiences with some of those entities being asked the data has to be there in India. There are some data protection laws looking at how it should be, and banks are learning. Banks are creating their own cloud adoption strategy. Now, while banks are adopting cloud, for what application I should adopt the cloud? There are some applications which are on the cloud wherever we are going ahead with that. Some of the banks in India are already having their data journey like big data or pushing some of those workloads at the end of the day for having those to take incentivization of the cloud elongability, right? As well as some companies or some banks are already utilizing voice or Alexa kind of ecosystems on which is already cloud. Some of the innovations which we are doing, it's not a cloud, but that is onto this level, but as a company, right? So which we are doing at the branches. So it depends upon it, and need is here. And at the same time, we have to see experimentally how our application providers, right, core application provider, for example, Finacle, or you talk about trade finance systems or lending systems, how they are cloud centric and how they are cloud ready. If you talk about them, they are ready, but their ecosystem yet to be matured. Another area is like if something goes wrong, right, or if there are issues. So apart from technology, there are some things to be sorted out as a tax resolution, right? So today, cloud service has to come and say that I will take care of your application as well as other things, so-called databases or some of those app servers, so-called web spheres and so on. Today, I am sure that if something goes wrong in my managed data center, I have to work closely with a database service provider or app service provider. That clarity will come slowly while we'll adopt the actual things. But for sure, every bank is really looking at how cloud should be adopted sooner or the later. ROI calculation, sometimes it becomes very difficult or a catchy situation for, sometimes it becomes more costly, right? Cloud becomes more costly. So best part or best journey for every bank is to start with creating an internal COE, internal skill set, right? Who understand cloud or how to move your application cloud. Or while I am creating my applications, I need to create those cloud ready applications. Developing in containers or Kubernetes and so on, so that migration journey becomes easy. Or another area is to create those checklists. While some of the banks are now pushing to RBI also, please allow us to go on a cloud, right? I think it's a journey and it is evolving with a very good pace, right? Tomorrow, I'll tell you, Vineet, use cases which I was speaking about, Web 3.0, all use cases gonna be on cloud, because cloud will be the bottom line for installations out there, right? There are a lot of platforms are coming in on top of hyperscalers. They are saying this is something environment only for banks, and that environment will be completely compliant with the RBI regulation or all those controls. It's an evolution, and people are making it ready. We will always see. Have you seen those days that we used to visit to the bank branches, right? And all of a sudden, PCs came into the bank branches. So it's evolution. Tomorrow's banking, I'm not sure we'll do those back to banking metaverse. So it's all about adoption, how much maturity into that technology. Cloud is far matured now. It's a mindset change. We need to come together and really resolve, right? So I think regulatory is blessed with a lot of intelligence. They will come up with some guidelines. IDRPT, which is the institution of RBI, they have already come up with a cloud adoption guideline. There are cooperative banks like they have already adopted cloud. So it's a matter of how will you incentivization currently done, and how will migrate slowly or with strategically onto the cloud. It's only strategy every bank needs to look at it. Yeah.
Got it, Prasanna. Thank you so much. A lot of information.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Prasanna sir. I think we got a good banker's perspective on the new technology trends as well. Just to get a little bit of the ball rolling from the yellow AI perspective, Varun, I would like to understand the role of conversational AI in the banking and financial industry from your perspective. How, what transformations can actually come in the banking industry with the voice transformation from a vendor perspective, and the challenges that you might actually face?
Yeah, when was the last time you worked with?
Is this for me?
Yeah,
it's for Varun.
Please go ahead.
But you can also add your points as well, Prasanna.
Yeah, Prasanna's points is always welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah, banker's perspective is always ready.
Yeah. And आप बताइए, you know more than me in this space. You're core banker, you are.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good question, right? And one of the slide I showcased how do you have those customer journeys? Look at from where your voice is coming or voice of customer is coming, right? Typically contact centers where people talk, or these days we are enabling those mobile banking or internet banking on voice. And tomorrow's IoT devices will be another set of channels. While we are today on contact center is one of the best use case to begin with, right? Or some of the chatbots which are coming on websites or on mobile banking app, which I think those could be the ways to really understand the voice of customers. I think one of those use cases I spoke, a voice can become an identity, right? So which is a unique, or voice plus something else could be second factor authentication also. That is how we should look at it. It's technology is maturing. Other platforms which are providing multi-factor authentication should consider voice biometrics also one of the authentication mechanism, right? So Varun, go ahead.
So adding to the point what Prasanna said, right? We are already experimenting with voice biometrics. We are calling it my voice is my passport, right? So what we do is we have beneath or Prasanna record his voice for 3 different sentences in 3 different ways. And we build the algorithm in the backend. Once we do that, the next time you call, you are supposed to speak out the same sentence you spoke the last time. Since you have captured it in 3 different variants, speed formats, accents, etc., right? And this is not done in the same time. You do the first thing in the morning at 8:30, 9 o'clock when you wake up, that's one voice. Second is in the afternoon when you're half tired from work, and the evening when you're really tired from work, then you again speak the same sentence, right? So you can't, a mimicry artist cannot crack the system. That's the idea behind this. And we're already working towards it. I think Prasanna, we should experiment that sometime. The voice is my passport.
Yes.
That's a very good, interesting stuff.
That's actually it. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Please go ahead. You did say something.
Yeah, so actually that's a true fact considering the diversity that we have in India. Every 100 kilometers it's actually said that the accent transforms a minor. So I think that's a very interesting point that you've actually laid down in the power of the tool that you have.
For example, if I go to Singapore and come back after a month's time, my accent will change practically, right? Because I'm used to that accent, right? And if I come and say my voice is my passport in my South Indian accent, it'll never pick up practically.
True.
That's why we do this 3 to 5 different variants so that it picks up all the mix and matches and it brings out an algorithm with the 98%, 99% plus accuracy for it to unlock your bank account, etc., or whatever transactions you want to do over the phone, right? That's one part. Now, when you're coming to your point of from a LOAI perspective, well, we practically service 76% of the BFSS in the country today. That's LOAI, right? So the amount of learning we have across voice bots and chat bots across multiple use cases such as sales, service, marketing, dealer, distributor, branch banking, you name it, right? We have verticalized templates from a BFSI standpoint. So what I personally, if you ask me, I've been in the conversational AI space. It's been 9.5 years now in the conversational AI space. When chatbots were just, people were just thinking about chatbots, I was practically selling and implementing chatbots back in those days. And I've gone through that hard way and I've seen that a lot of things have changed. And the only thing which today is a major challenge is adoption post go live. I'm sure Prasanna can comment on that, right? Frequent change management happening in the organizations today because we see that a lot of people going, leaving, right? So somebody's idea is implemented, it's running perfectly for 6 months, fine. Unfortunately, the person has to move out for various reasons. A new person comes or the person gets promoted, somebody else comes. They have a different thought process, right? So the biggest challenge here is change management. How do you take care of change management and make sure that the customer experience is not affected? And that is what is, I would say, the latest challenge which we are encountering, and we definitely overcome it. That's how it is.
I think that was a point that Prasanna sir also highlighted, that creating a COE as well as certain experts within the team. I think that's very critical for any successful implementation, right, Prasanna sir? I think that validates the points as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
COE today is the key.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I said COE today is the key. Otherwise, it's very difficult to sustain consistency.
Correct.
So I think how COEs are helping adopting any new technology is like it creates a mindset for that organization. Yes, we are going ahead. Secondly, it helps to create a governance structure. Who is going to be the responsible for that technology, for example, voice or a contact center, right? So typically, who is going to be the responsible? How many people or what all skill set we have to require? Is it a in-house skill set or to hire somebody more? Like I'm not sure it will be a chief voice officer in future, right? Who will take care of only interfaces on voice. Or third thing, how it helps to for that organization, how this technology get adopted with the existing infrastructure or existing channels. What we have. That is adoption. It gives some kind of a experimentation opportunity with the startups or tech companies to begin with, and then it gives a matured outlook. What are typical use cases? So during COC, we need to make sure that which are those use cases we're gonna work in future. Maybe you have 10 use cases, but to begin with, can we start only at a contact center, followed by chatbot, or followed by at a human resource level, or at all levels, right? Based upon these need, I think certainly we can really say that certainly go ahead with the bigger approach, right? And collaborate with the ecosystem, talk to other bankers, how they are also bringing on. So those incentives can also come to the during the COE approach. Yeah.
Agreed. I would just, before we go ahead with some questions on with the members, participants in the group, I would like to also ask Manav about a certain point on similar on conversational AI, on the revolutionary capabilities of this tool in for the banking and finance industry. So, how Manav, your inputs on the same?
Yeah, so I think pretty well you can say touch upon by Prasanna and Varun. I would just like to say, basically the global spend on the AI is forecast to double, which is growing more than 110 billion by 2024, with banking and retail predicted to spend the most money on the voice bots. So that was one of the Gartner's finding. And almost like 40% of 18 to 44-year-old consumers are ready to bank through social platforms and voice assistants, according to the EPAM 2020 banking report. So that's a revolutionary, you can say, the kind of a revolution which these niche technologies is bringing in and helping the banks in terms of the customer service, enhancing the customer experience. And I think 7.3 billion is the estimated operational cost savings by the BFSI sector in the chatbots globally by 2023, and 8.4 billion voice assistant units are estimated to have been sold by 2024. So these are some of the starts of the findings which justify the investment in the conversational AI from the BFSI perspective.
That's quite interesting, Manav. Thanks a lot, Manav, and all the other panelists for actually a good session and question answers. I would like to take up questions from the participant or anybody within the panel team has any questions to each other. We are very well ready to start with that. So, Manav, you have any questions?
I think we have some questions from the participants. I think there is a question.
Okay. So there's a first question here. How can by Unica, how can multilingual capabilities of Yellow AI's voice chatbot help overcome the digital divide and knowledge gap? I think that's targeted towards Varun, I guess. You can take that up.
I'm sorry, my line got a little bit choppy. What is the question?
Okay, so I'll repeat the question. Unica is asking this question: how can multilingual capabilities of Yellow AI's voice or chatbots help overcome the digital divide and knowledge gap?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Right now, multilingual. If you want to live in India, you need to know multiple languages, right?
True.
I'm from South and I speak Hindi, and I understand Marathi and I speak back in Marathi, and of course English is always there, right? But the moment I go to a west east or Kolkata or something, I practically never understood the language because it was very difficult to communicate, right? So that point of time, I used to use a Google Translate and understand and then I used to translate back. So that was very helpful. Now, that is when I have a smartphone. However, today, what we have seen as a trend is that people in tier 1 cities and tier 2 cities have the smartphone, etc. But tier 3 rural talukas, they do not have a smartphone. However, they have practically more money than what practically people who have in tier 1 have. They don't want to have a smartphone because they're used to the kind of lifestyle where they're happy, free, without the involvement of social media. However, they still want to do a bank process, etc. Right? They still call a contact center number. When they speak, you practically cannot have 1,000-seater contact center with addressing multiple languages, multiple dialects in the country, right? No. For example, if somebody speaks a Bhojpuri or a Maithili, you cannot have a person in the contact center who understands Maithili, practically, right? It's impossible.
True.
Yeah, right. Or if you have Northeast, for example, right? The language is totally different. Every 10 kilometers you move in the Northeast when you go upper Shillong and down, right? Now, what Yellow AI's multilingual voice bot or a chatbot capability does is that we are able to understand Hindi apart from the Hindi plus English, that's the common English is what we call it. And we're also able to understand the dialects of a person right from Vidarbha to a Dhule, or right from a Goa to, let's say, a Pune for that matter, right? Imagine this happening across India, where we're able to handle the length and breadth of the country in terms of dialects. That's the biggest differentiator where we bring in. If we do this, and since you're already doing it for a lot of organizations who are in the farming space, where a farmer today calls a voice bot and is registering a claim because his crop did not sow because he had floods in the region practically, right? He wants to claim insurance for that, right? This is very interesting. These kind of use cases, or for a person who is sitting in Nanded, for example, who had met with an accident, unfortunately, and he wants to do a motor claim. Since he does not have a bike because he's met with an accident, he has to walk all the way or take a bus like 25-30 kilometers to go to a general insurance service center and claim it. But today, no, it's not required.
Right.
Now, he makes a phone call today, speaks in Hindi or in Marathi or in English or whichever language, and is able to register a claim using a complete conversational AI. This is how we are able to empower organizations with the help of our multilingual capabilities across a voice bot or a chatbot.
Great. Thanks a lot, Varun. I that's very interesting response. That's really great, technology that Yellow AI is presenting with the challenges that we face across India, the multilingual challenge, you can say. We have another question by KS. How capable is the voice bot / chatbot to understand the instant, even if it is not articulated clearly?
That's where the machine learning and the NLU intelligence from up comes in, right? That's where the NLU comes into play. So you can speak fully, you can speak partially. We have a model called as a sentence encoder model in the machine learning algorithm, which basically means that you do not have to speak the full sentence. If you speak only partial of it, then the sentence encoder model comes up in the picture. And then in case the bot is really not able to or not understood what the customer is trying to say, then backed by the sentence encoder model, we also bring in a model called as did you mean function. So what it does is it will pick up the confidence score and understand what are the nearest scores which is pertaining to it, less than 85% or more than 85%, up to 92%. And it's going to ask the customer, hey, did you mean that, do you want to buy an insurance policy or do you want to raise a claim, in case the question is not so completely clear, right? So with this kind of algorithms we have built, which is proprietary completely, we have been able to bridge the gap where you don't need to speak completely or chat type completely. The platform will still make sure that the intent is understood and it will be able to respond back to the customer.
Yeah, I think we are actually pushing towards consumers getting a little more lazier, in fact, comparatively.
Okay,
So the next, sorry, Varun, go ahead.
Nothing. I was just telling how lazy people have become, and just they speak like a few words. And in fact, I was talking to somebody there for a study, and he was telling my son speaks to Alexa to order food from Swiggy. I was like, wow. And the kid is 5 years old.
I think there's a massive transformation, like how Prasanna sir was stating, the gradual evolution of the consumer from standing in queues to talking on the phone. I think that's what's happening right now. Okay, so we have another question. I think Prasanna sir, you would be able to answer this query. How is conversational AI being adopted in the banking industry? I know you've added certain points during your presentation and conversation as well. It would be great if you can answer this query as well. Is Prasanna sir there? Okay, so I think Prasanna sir is not there. So Varun, would you be able to take up the question?
I can take up the questions. You're not a problem.
Sure, perfect. Yeah.
So how is a conversational AI being adopted by the banking industry, right? First step first, a lot of banks today are looking at reducing the contact center volumes. The reason, because the pandemic has taught people a huge lesson that what if your call center guy is not able to go to office to pick up the phone call, right? That's the most important thing, right? Now, when the pandemic kicked in, I still remember when I was in Singapore and I flew back on 23rd and I was like completely not able to go where, right? I had to go and draw cash because people were telling me ATM mein paisa nahi milega. Just go to the bank, run, right? Then I had to call the call center and ask, dude, can I come to the branch? Which is the nearest branch open? Because near me, all the branches were closed where I live. Now, the contact center, I wouldn't name the bank. The contact center's reply was, we are not operational due to this season, due to this COVID reasons.
Correct.
Please email us, right? Because email is still, people get the email. Now, by the time I email, somebody checks it, and then somebody responds it, somebody would have taken all the money from the bank and gone away. I would practically be sitting on some ducks. Right? That's a classic example.
Correct.
Now, that is when a couple of banks, or I would rather say one of our own customers, Bajaj Finserv, took that up, right? Now, for example, one of a large NBFC customer of ours, what they did was, we were in the UAT phase even before the pandemic, surprisingly, because they wanted to start the journey, not expecting a pandemic to hit and right. God forbid it came in. And we went live on April 2nd. And practically the first 1.5 months, the contact centers were running on LOA's voice bots.
Wow.
Only complex queries were getting deflected to a WhatsApp, etc., using LOA's chatbot. Second was another large FMCG provider where you can order food, etc. They took away the contact centers completely. For 8 months' time, they're running on voice AI with LO. That's the kind of level of transformation we have. Coming to a banking, banks are adopting to AI, conversational AI, slowly and very carefully, because, as Prasanna mentioned before, right, RBI guidelines are very, very stringent in the country because of data security. Second, as what Prasanna mentioned, if you really want to do transformation, you need to touch the heart, which is the core banking system. It can be a Finacle or a TCS Banks or whatever that is, right? If I don't touch your heart, I will never be able to make you smile. That's what I personally believe. Right? You can touch the mind, but if I touch your heart, you're able to smile, right? So if you want the customer to smile and give him, and the organization gives him a good customer experience, you need to touch the core banking systems. Otherwise, you can't do much transformation. FAQs and all, it's very normal. You can just Google and ask FAQs, you still get it, right? However, most of the call volumes comes because of core banking questions, checkbook ordering, etc. I have to touch the core banking system to do a process, right? RPA is there in the back end in place, but however, to instruct the RPA, you still need a human being. Now here the voice bot takes over. It is slow, it's gradual, but I'm sure that end of 2024, 25, I'm looking at least 60% of the banks in the country will be having voice bots complete. That's what I see as a trend.
That's a pretty interesting number, in fact. Okay, thanks a lot, Varun. That was quite a detailed answer. Do we have any other questions from the participants? Mr. Rohar, hi. Prasanna sir, there was a question that we had asked Varun as well. How is conversational AI being adopted by the banking industry? So if you have your inputs on the same, it's quite welcome. In fact, we can listen to your points as well.
Yeah, I think the same thing, right? We need to see where all those channels, right, where we will receive the voice of our customers. Typically, we start with the voice of a customer at the contact center, as well as some of the channels where we are adding those chatbots or those voice bot relevant features. I think some of the banks in India, we have seen done some Alexa kind of innovations. Some of the banks in abroad use voice as an identity. In India, also one of the bank guys use at a contact center, they don't ask extra additional question, what is your name or mother's name? They just identify, and on their dashboard, they will sense that this customer is a green or red based upon their voice. I think moreover, intentionally, voice will tell you how the prominent is a customer, their behavioral patterns also. Apart from facial, voice can also become one way to understand customers' sentiments. Technology needs to be evolved. Technology is evolving. As a DCB bank, we are also looking at how we can use voice or text-based chatbots for some of those, to begin with some of those non-banking services. Maybe tomorrow your devices, your cars will ask, or rather than you will instruct, please let's go to the McDonald's and come back with the burger, pizza, or ask your smart cars to go and fuel the petrol at a petrol pump. So it's a autonomous era is gonna come, but I think voice will become because what we have seen yesterday, this is what I was talking about. Yesterday, people used to travel down to the branch. Now your branch is in your pocket.
Right.
Wherever I go, I should have, and your interfaces are becoming more and more invisible. So biometric plays major role to create invisible interfaces. So could be facial biometrics or voice or your fingerprints. So that's it. Which creates a digital identity of that customer or additional identity of that customer apart from your static or some of those data which inherit from our date of birth and so on and so forth. So it's I think these kind of use cases typically banks needs to adopt heavily. Some of the things which banks are looking at based upon what data they have had at a contact center, they do a lot of analytics. See how many people are talking in English or Hindi and so forth, how much duration they talk, what is their sentiment while they are talking, are they happy or unhappy? And this kind of a voice plus video analytics could be really helpful for bank to understand what is the happiness index of the customer. So apart from voice, their AI also comes into the picture and understand. I think I will not be surprised tomorrow voice can become another additional factor of KYC. So let's look at how it happened today. We are doing video KYC, which has a video plus other artifacts like your documents. But I think how customer is talking, but technology has to be evolved in the future. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Prasanna sir. That's a pretty interesting point of view as well. I think there are some more questions as it were flooded when you started your response. I'll start with the latest one. Tell us some of the more ready use cases for banking where voice automation is doing the most value add. I think Varun, you'll be able to take that up.
Sure, I will, of course. So from a use cases from a automation can be done, right? So I will have to go back and present the deck. I think presenting the deck will add more value here since it's getting recorded instead of talking, because people will be able to actually see the use cases which can be done from a BFS side perspective standpoint, right? So just give me a minute, guys. I'll have to pull up the slide for you guys and do a slideshow. Hang on. That creates more, seeing is believing for people, and it comes in the memory in a much better way.
True.
Yeah. These are some of the use cases which we can do on a conversational AI bot, irrespective of voice or chat, right? Irrespective of channel, of WhatsApp, a Telegram, a mobile app, a website, or an IVR on top of an Avaya, Cisco, Genesis, etc. So it's a lead generation, completely outbound, customer engagement, welcome calling, credit card, welcome calling, insurance, welcome calling, you name it. And we are currently building a use case for Smart Advisor, wherein, in fact, it's in the mutual fund industry. The bot actually calls and tells you that what are the stocks which are doing better, and if you'd like to invest or not, and giving advice, right? It's called as mutual fund advisor. Then customer support, of course, is there inbound, right? So see, guys, the most important scenario here is, as I said before, if you don't touch the heart, the customer wouldn't smile. You can't do all use cases of a voice bot today because of dependency on core banking system, etc. So you should start small, take a baby steps with respect to customer complaints. So any call which has an AHT of less than 2.5 minutes from a banking scenario, you should start there and eventually progress and make it better. That's from a use perspective. And financial services, again, loans, deposits, transfers, credit card, debit card, financial advice, insurance, capital markets. I mean, so on and so forth. Multiple use cases are there.
Great. Okay, so that's an interesting response. It mirrors a point that you both were also talking about, is take small steps at a time during the implementation, and that's what the response was as well. I think there is this one interesting question over here by Neha. Considering that trust, the question is, trust is a big issue when it comes to banking. Maybe that the consumer is scared with changing trends. Do you think this is challenging when we adapt new technology for the consumers, the adaptation trend for consumers, because it's all considering money, right? In the banking industry. So how do you ease the customer so that they actually trust the new solution as well? Varun, you'll be able to answer that. In fact, providing the solution.
I would say Prasanna should answer this. Some true banker should answer this question. I was waiting for it.
Prasanna sir, your point of view?
Can you just repeat, because connection
so the question basically is that when it comes to banking, trust is the biggest issue, because it actually it's all about money for a consumer in the end. So when a bank adapts new technology, how easy is it for a consumer to start using that technology? And how do you push the confidence to the customer that it's a safe technology to use?
Yeah, I think what is happening, customer is becoming more and more intelligent, and rather customer is pushing banks to innovate furthermore. That gives a lot of confidence for banks. Yeah, we have to provide these kind of a new kind of innovations to the customer. Now let's take example of mobile banking, which was not there earlier, but mobile apps were already there for some of the non-banking applications, so-called games, right? So that's inherently becomes a trust, like it will work. And as we work, there are some kind of messages or some kind of SMSs always go from bank's end. This is secure. This is how you should really operate. Don't use or don't share your passwords. And while they onboard onto mobile banking, there are a lot of assistance overs, right, which always help customer. How do we operate that? So it's a matter of a trust. And what is happening today? We don't have any of those manuals, right, for WhatsApp or any of those high-end applications people use it on Android and iOS. Similarly, we follow those user-centric UI UX guidelines or a science behind that, and that inherently creating a trust factor for our customers. Yes, if I am clicking here, it's gonna work, right? If I am going to click somewhere, it will not work. So that kind of a UI UX guidelines also banks are also following as a best practices while they push any of those new innovations to the customer. I think another aspect is like banks are governed by regulators, right? And regulator does provide a lot of guidelines. So, example, PCI DSS guideline, which is around the payment controls, or there are DPSC controls given last year by RBI, and it gets evolved, right? And these guidelines are making this whole ecosystem more better and more trustworthy. So based upon type of a customer, whether it is a Gen X or a boomer or a traditional, their adoption towards any of those channels is pre-decided. For example, I'll be a traditionalist. I would certainly go to the branch for any of my traditional queries, right? But if I'm a tech savvy, automatically I'll go to the mobile banking or internet banking or tomorrow's any of those things. But in a nutshell, bank is responsible for every penny or every pie which is put into their banking accounts, right? And bank does follow all those regulatory guidelines which are governed by our regulator. As India, I think we are much more blessed with a very good regulator, Reserve Bank of India. And what we have seen in the last 4 to 5 years, they have come up with a lot of guidelines on security. Uses of RSA, which is adaptive authentication, implementation of a fraud risk management tool at every core banking or payment ecosystem, having those additional OTPs, right? India is one of those countries who has come up with a second factor authentication for your debit or credit cards. And moreover, there are additional things, right? How do we report frauds? It's an overall ecosystem is quite robust. I think over a period of time, customer also understood that anything comes from bank, it undergoes a additional cycle called as IT security evaluation or a security audit, right? I think that's how customer needs to really well versed with this kind of. There should not be any question also of a trust if they are utilizing any of the apps of or bank's app. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Those are valid points, Prasanna sir. I think thanks a lot for that response. I think we have one more question. I think post that we can wrap up. We've already passed our time for the webinar session. There's a question by Badrinath. With apps like Truecaller, does it affect customers accepting inbound calls for voice bots? If yes, what can banks do better to message customers for better engagement? Varun? Prasanna sir, will you be able to take that up? Is Varun on the call?
So I think Varun has got some connectivity issue.
Yeah, I think Varun got disconnected. So, okay. So what we'll do is definitely we'll take up all these queries. If possible, we'll share an email address where you can send across the queries. So you already have the yellow.ai support query details, and you can definitely answer, or we can definitely answer all your questions. I think it's up for me for the question and answer sessions with the panelists. I think it's over to Manav to conclude this event and thank the panelists. Over to you, Manav.
Thanks, Vineet. I would like to thank all the eminent panelists for their valuable time joining us and helping us to educate in terms of the revolution technologies which are coming in the banking industries and how basically banks can leverage conversational AI to enhance the customer experience and bring, you can say, better services for the customers and as well as increase the engagement. So thank you, Prasanna sir. Thanks, Vineet. Thanks, Varun. So Prasanna sir, it's a pleasure to have you, and basically the insights you have given in terms of the BFSI industry. So that will be pretty helpful for us in terms of taking it forward.
Yeah, so thank you so much once again, organizers, Digital LOAI, Mano. I think this is the need of a time to evaluate better tools. LOAI is doing a very good job in this space. Many banks are adopting. I will also recommend the way technology is being evolved and the platform is getting evolved. Certainly, it's one of the best. Look forward how we can collaborate and make this whole engagement more prominent. So thank you so much once again for inviting me here for my views, right? Thank you.
Thank you for the appreciation and the recommendation. It's a pleasure to interact with you. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a nice evening. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.